Yorkshire Dales are breathtaking. With sweeping valleys carved by meandering rivers, there's something majestic around every corner.
It's no wonder the locals call it God's own country.
In this episode, I'm in Wharfedale, where I have a date with the Calendar Girls, who stripped off and put the Dales on the map.
I was going to want to look at photographs of those with no clothes on.
I relive the heroic story of a deadly World War II bomber crash.
He was in terrible pain. He managed to get out of the turret, and the plane wasn't anywhere to be seen.
And I meet some elusive creatures of the night. Come and join me in the Yorkshire Dales. What a great place to start my latest adventure. These are the Cow and Calf Rocks that stand guard over the Wharfedale town of Ilkley. Local legend has it that the much bigger cow and the smaller calf was split when a local giant was on the run. It's a tall story, but visitors have been coming to Ilkley and its famous moor for generations.
But I'm going to leave the high ground behind me and go into the town itself, which is the living embodiment of one of the biggest brands going, Yorkshire.
Wharfedale is one of the most accessible parts of the Yorkshire Dales National Park. My journey is starting in Ilkley and follows the River Wharfe, taking in the stunning ruins of Bolton Abbey. From there, I'll be heading upstream towards the Wharfedale village of Grassington. The trail then continues towards Kettlewell and my final destination of Buckton Pike. Ilkley was once famous for its fresh air and spa waters. Now it's all about the gorgeous food produced here. Lishman's Butchers ships produce across the country, from Dales reared lamb to prize-winning bangers. The hard work starts early, and in the sausage shed, butcher David Lishman is letting me have a go.
You're doing well.
They're not so bad, are they?
You're a natural.
Ah.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
My parents were farmers down the Wharfedale Valley. My brother still runs that farm, and so I became a butcher, which is very closely connected to the farming industry.
No
of course.
kidding, yeah.
All this pork is coming straight from the farm now. It's a farm near York.
Right.
All outdoor bred pork, so we're very proud of the pork that we're selling. We can use it into the sausage, into the bacon, into the frankfurters, into the cured meats. We're making lots of charcuterie now, so salamis, air-dried meats, air-dried hams, and the traditional old York ham.
Yorkshire's food is in high demand, from the exotic to the classic.
Just sprinkle a little bit of flour on.
Okay.
David's daughter Emma is a dab hand at pork pie making.
Enough, yeah.
600 pork pies are made each day. It used to be done by hand. Now it's mechanised. All I have to do is keep up.
Yeah.
Hey, look at that.
What we have in here is we've got a press in the back which is heated up to 78 degrees, which tells you here, so it's very hot.
Yeah.
And then I put some air on as well, which pushes the tin off the press.
And then when it comes out this side,
You lift it off,
lift it off.
you put two back on.
Ah, okay. Two off, two on.
Yeah, so there's never a hole spare.
Two off. Two in. Oh, blimey. I only just made them, actually. Two in. Two off. Ah! One in. Look at that. Sorry. Ah, there's another one. Ah.
Perfect. That's it.
Okay.
You did well. You have to keep your cool.
But that's the trouble. You've got to keep cool in this situation.
But they look good.
When the pressure comes on in pie making land, you've got to be cool.
Yeah.
I've always liked the Yorkshire pork pies. I
Yep.
always really have. But what is it that makes them so special?
You can see the pie meat, it's quite pink. It will look pinker when it's cooked as well. Whereas
Right.
if you were to get a pie from the Midlands, where Malt and Mowbray come from,
Uh-huh.
it'll be grey.
Yes, that's
a bit
right.
dull. You can just pick whichever pie you like the look of.
Like the look of
You can
that
put-
one right in the middle.
Then you can put your P for
Oh,
pork.
great.
Your own personal pie.
Right. Now that's a good feeling.
45 minutes later, my pork pie is ready, and it looks a beauty.
They look perfect.
What about that one?
The special one.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
It's a good
Right.
pie. Neatly pressed, all looks
I
smart.
care about all of them, but I had to have a special look at that one.
It's understandable.
And with the jelly added, another Yorkshire export finds a happy customer. I've got around 25 miles ahead of me, and for most of my journey, I'll have the River Wharfe for company. And it doesn't take long before one of the Dale's most iconic locations looms into view. Bolton Abbey is a popular day out for those who live in the towns and cities of Yorkshire and Lancashire. The Bolton Abbey estate covers 30,000 acres and has more than 80 miles of footpaths, plus the ruins of an Augustinian priory.
Work started on it in the 12th century, and a thriving religious community soon settled in the area. But 400 years later, Henry VIII came calling and stripped the priory of its assets. But religion did survive here. Once it was negotiated that the locals could keep a church on site, and it still stands today.
The Abbey has been a tourist spot for as long as anyone can remember, but its popularity took off in the post-war decades, when workers from places like Bradford and Burnley used their increased leisure time to explore the great outdoors. Today, it gets around 450,000 visitors each year and is the Yorkshire home of the Duke of Devonshire.
What is it, you think, that makes Bolton Abbey and this part of Wharfedale so unique? Can you define it for us?
I think it's a combination of the more or less wild landscape and the hand of man, plus an incredibly beautiful river, and the fact that it's been well looked after by farmers for hundreds, thousands of years, and that it has some of these amazing old buildings like the Priory Church we're sitting in front of.
And of course, you know it so well. I mean, can you share a few of your special memories about it?
Well, I think the stepping stones are always something very special for us. You know, it's, they were a really scary thing when I was a small child, and now they're an even more scary thing that I'm an old man. But there's something which I think I and my family and thousands of families associate with this place, because lots and lots of kids have tried and succeeded usually to get across and remembered it, and then they bring their children, and then they bring their children. So that's one of the really lovely things about Bolton. It doesn't change very much.
That makes loads of sense to me. And just sitting here, I mean, look, you know, the river and...
You can't beat it.
Tourism is a large part of life at Bolton Abbey. Another big job is looking after this landscape. Most people spend their time by the Abbey, but there's much more to explore. This is the Strid, where the River Wharfe narrows and the thundering sounds of water fills the air. It's one of the Bolton Abbey estate's wild places, but in the future there could be a few more. On one hillside, huge numbers of conifers have been removed, with more than 10,000 British broadleaf trees planted instead. But the hot weather last summer played havoc with the replanting, and head forester Mark Jeffrey is surveying the damage.
All right, Mark. Great view of Barden Tower. Great place to work today. Yeah.
Yes, a lovely place.
Well, what are you up to now, then?
I'm just surveying these trees that we planted last winter to see how many have survived and how many haven't.
Yeah.
This year we really struggled. Just a hot, dry summer just killed a lot of our trees, unfortunately, this year.
Well, how many do you think have survived? What sort of percentage?
I would think we've lost a good 80–90% of the oak trees that we've planted here this year.
Wow. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
60% of the more drought-resistant sycamores have survived. And today, I'm helping Mark count what's left.
That's a dead one, I think, Mark.
It's dead, so put a blue spot on that. We can count that.
Okay. Sorry, buddy, you're dead.
Each dead tree will be replaced in the next growing season.
What about this one?
That's one, yeah.
But he looks good.
That's good, that's good. We'll leave that, yeah.
Okay. Live one. Good to see a live one. I showed up on the site here and I couldn't spot an oak from a sycamore to a live one to a dead one to you name it. But once you get your eye in, you get a sense of rhythm. And with Mark's help, I'm doing all right. I'm, getting on with it. So this is our first live oak.
It is, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We need to give him a bit of a bit of love and encouragement, Come on, buddy. 100 years. That's all we're asking, just 100 years of good, straight, beautiful growth.
A return to native British trees could see a huge jump in biodiversity, but it's a long-term strategy because it could take up to a century for the new woodland to mature.
Future generations are gonna thank you and your team, aren't they?
Hopefully, yeah.
And I can see it now, tourists coming down the valley in their electric hovercraft or, remote drones looking down and saying, oh, look at what they did for us. The old boys, they looked after us,
Yeah, hopefully.
Now, you might think this corner of the Yorkshire Dales is always peaceful and sedate, but in 1999, it grabbed the attention of the world's media. And the reason? Well, a group of middle-aged women took their clothes off for charity. The ladies of the Rillstone Women's Institute could never have imagined what they were starting when they launched their cheeky calendar to raise a few £1,000s for leukemia and lymphoma research. In the end, £5 million rolled in.
Breathe out, push your navel back, yes, no, just curve forward, heavy.
One of the main forces behind the calendar was Tricia, who is also a Pilates teacher.
Yeah, you're the calendar girls.
Oh, yes.
Oh, hello.
Yes.
I've been looking for you since 1999, Is that right? Can I join it?
Yeah, you can.
The idea of a money-raising calendar took shape when Angela's husband, John, was diagnosed with cancer.
You said we'd never do it. We were all talk. But you see, you don't say that, do you?
No, you don't. You definitely don't.
And I can remember so distinctly saying, well, I was going to want to look at photographs of those with no clothes on. We were naive. We didn't really think that it was going to go anywhere.
I wasn't nervous at all. I was just thrilled that we were actually doing something, that we'd talked about it for so long. And after this awful thing had happened to John and Angela, it was nothing to take, and it was very discreet. Then we had to get the photographs developed in the camera shop in Skipton. There were no digital cameras.
How many did you sell in that first burst?
88,000.
Which was double the real Pirelli calendar for that year.
Oh,
They
yes.
only sold 44,000.
That's the way.
In total, 1 million were shifted, changing the image of the WI forever. There was a movie, a play, and a musical, as well as countless copycat calendars.
So now it's all these years later, 20 years later. Funny old thing, but would you do it again?
I wouldn't do it again now, but I don't regret doing it.
Yeah.
I don't regret any of it. Not a minute of it.
And I mean, all the other people who have copied us, that they will have had fun as well. And they'll have raised money for their chosen charity.
It's a very positive thing to be part of the calendar.
And inspirational.
I'm back on the trail and heading for Grassington, which is a real hub for tourists to the Dales. But there's a bit of a spectacle here that few people see.
For most visitors, a day by the river is an essential part of the Yorkshire Dales experience. But we're not the only ones who like hanging out here.
For 20 years, Leeds University scientists studied Dorbenton bats on the River Wharfe. They found males and females really mixed. But Grassington Bridge was one place where they met up, using gaps in the stonework to roost in the spring and summer.
We know they have a very complicated, structured society, which I suspect nobody ever really imagined. These are easily the best studied dog benton bats in the country and probably over even greater distance. If you see a bat that looks like it's hoovering the surface, looks like a little hovercraft,
Yes.
skimming figure of eights across the water surface,
It's a Dorbenton bat.
that's almost certainly a Dorbenton's bat.
Not only do males and females gather in Grassington, unusually for the species, they cohabit too.
They spend the winters high up the valley in underground caves or in mines, and then they spread down the river in the spring, and they form nursery colonies in trees and bridges and buildings all along the length of the river.
So they use the river as their sort of guide. It's their, for want of a better term, it's their super highway, really.
Yeah,
right?
this is Bat Thoroughfare, you know, this is the Bat Motorway.
Bats are protected, and tonight John and a small team have permission to catch a few in special nets so they can monitor how they're doing and add to the data records.
I don't know if you can even see it because it's so fine and hard to see even in this light, but it's a very finely made net, and I guess that's essential because the bats have got such, you know, sophisticated echolocation that I guess anything heavier and thicker they would see it. So they're caught in the net and then fall into the pocket. They don't get tangled up in it and maybe get injured.
As darkness falls in the dales, the midges and flies are out in force. Dinner for the bats is about to be served.
Of course, filming bats is not easy. They're fast, they move in an erratic manner, and it's dark. And if we put a light on, they just scatter. So tonight, we've come equipped with a heat-seeking camera.
With the naked eye, you can't see too much, but the bats are definitely out. And it seems John and his team have had a successful night. This bag contains the bats that have been caught, but it's only when you see them close up that you realise how they're adapted for life on the river.
Now, what have we got?
Fully going over that.
Right.
The thing that we really know it's Dorbentons, look at the size of that foot.
Right, the big feet, okay.
And those big feet are used to scoop insects out of the water. They can actually even scoop insects with their tail membrane as well.
Well, they really are great hunters, aren't they? I mean, they've got their mouth, which they use for insects, their big feet, which they can use for insects, and their tail, which they can scoop them up as well, you know. They are like little furry fighter jets.
The bats are released unharmed to continue feeding, but there's one last surprise.
Okay, so we've got another Dorbenton's bat, but this one
good.
has a ring on it.
Oh, look at that.
So this
Right.
was probably ringed about 10 years ago.
So we haven't ringed for over 10 years now. So this one has to be at least 10 years old.
I see.
And it could have been quite old when we rung it.
Oh, it's fantastic seeing an old friend. How old do they go to anyway?
They can live up to over 40 years old. I think
Really?
the record is over 40.
40
yeah,
years,
but
wow.
Typically over 20 years.
And would you say this population is doing well?
You know, they're reasonably abundant on the river, probably nothing like as abundant as they were 100 years ago.
So do they have a secure future here in the Yorkshire Dales?
Who knows?
Oh, we don't know. We really
Well,
don't know.
I don't think we do. I think until we're more serious about conservation measures.
Wow, okay.
Control of pesticides and herbicides and pollution into rivers and all of these things.
Right.
I think all wildlife still has an uncertain future. We're still losing it.
Anna, this has been great to work with you, and what a privilege to be so close to these beautiful animals. Thanks very much, but I guess it's time we should let her go, eh?
Yeah.
Back where she belongs. There you go, mate.
I'm now deep in the heart of Wharfedale, and I'm on my way to the small village of Kettlewell.
And I've arrived at just the right time, because this is the legendary Kettlewell Scarecrow Festival. It's one of the biggest events of its kind in the country, with over 100 houses taking part. And every year there's a different theme.
The Scarecrow Festival has been running for almost a quarter of a century, and all the money from the car parking and tea rooms is put to good use.
It raises a substantial amount of money for the school, the village hall, the church, and other community projects, be it the cricket team, the rounders team.
So in the 24 years then, it's evolved into something that is now essential. It's not just a bit of fun.
It is essential, yeah. I mean, I think all of those main community amenities really rely on that chunk of cash. Rural schools in particular have big difficulties really in terms of the funding. You know, they're funded per pupil, so obviously if you've only got small communities, it can put a lot of pressure on the budgets.
It attracts visitors from all over the country, but today there's a group who've come from just down the road.
Well, you can't go wrong with Mum's cooking, that's my experience.
Parts of Yorkshire are ethnically diverse, the Dales much less so. Now the National Park is working with Bradford's community groups. Shakila Hanif has become a Yorkshire Dales champion, spreading the word about the countryside.
Every South Asian community that is probably living in Bradford we have here today. It's somewhere for the children to just come out and experience the open air that we don't have in inner city Bradford. The fresh air, actually seeing sheep out on the fields, cows, that we often never see.
And with bus trips to different parts of the Dales, the days out aren't just for the young uns.
It reminds me more of back home in India.
And have you been coming many times on this?
First time here.
Is it?
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
Beautiful.
What about the scarecrows? Have you given them the scarecrows?
Yeah. I like to look them, but I don't like to touch them.
Yeah.
You know, people can live in Bradford all their lives and have absolutely no idea that this is on their doorstep. And people who do know, they feel uncomfortable, they don't know if they're allowed to do things, they don't know where they can walk. So it's really important that people who just aren't aware of all the sort of opportunities have someone to show them, and that's what the National Park Authority is working to do at the moment.
And it looks like it's paying off. The Dales is gaining a whole new fan base.
There's so much reward in it. Just getting out, you feel so much better. Your mood, you know, obviously the health benefits of walking and things.
Absolutely amazing, gets us out of the house. It's something different for the kids. They don't normally get to experience the countryside.
People will often come back from these trips and say, wow, I feel so much better, I feel so much lighter, I feel happier. Sometimes people think, well, you're only going on a walk to the countryside. What's the benefit? Actually, there's huge benefits. It's just not always obvious to people.
As I head to the top of the valley, I've got my eye on one of the more remote spots in Wharfedale. In the tiny hamlet of Hubberholme is the Church of St Michael and All Angels. Stunning, isn't it? There's been a church here since the 12th century. Author J.B. Priestley was a big fan too. He called it one of the smallest and most pleasant places in the world, and his ashes were laid here after his death in 1984.
It's worth checking out the interior of the church too, because just look at these. These pews are the handiwork of the famous Yorkshire carpenter Robert Thompson, and I know they're his because of this telltale sign right here. Robert was known as the Mouseman of Kilburn, and the carved mouse was his signature. Beautiful craftsmanship in an amazing setting.
This is a great place to enjoy some peace and quiet, but less than a mile away is another fascinating Dale story, where one man defied all the odds to survive a deadly air crash. In late January 1942, this valley was in the grip of an Arctic blizzard, and high above the village of Cray, an RAF Wellington bomber and its Polish crew was in deep trouble. In the snowstorm, the plane lost its bearings and headed into Wharfedale on one of its highest hills, Buckton Pike. Richard Fushkiak's father Joe was the rear gunner, and what unfolded next was straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster.
Wow. He's a good-looking man, your dad.
Yeah.
And this is about how he would have looked on the day of the crash, isn't it?
I think that photograph was taken just shortly before he crashed.
Yep.
In his operational training unit.
Joe was just 19 and on a training flight. In the blizzard, the Wellington crashed into a wall near the summit. 4 men were killed instantly, and 1 was severely injured, with Joe facing the biggest battle of his life.
At that moment of impact, I get that feeling if you're facing backwards, you're in a bit of a protected position and at the rear of the aircraft as well.
Yes and no. He was in a turret which swiveled on the back of the plane.
Yep.
And that broke off.
Ah.
The plane must have been doing over 200 miles an hour.
Right.
Broke off, tumbled him around, and he cracked his head on the top of the unit he was in.
I'll bet.
And then silence. He was in terrible pain. He managed to get out of the turret, and the plane wasn't anywhere to be seen.
Joe's ankle was broken, but his luck was about to change. The footprints of a fox in the snow guided him towards his shattered plane and the badly wounded radio operator. After tending to him, he continued alone, following the footprints until he was found by bewildered locals.
And they thought he was a German pilot. He couldn't speak English very well, and then he collapsed and doesn't remember much more until he woke up in hospital.
The injured wireless operator didn't survive, but Joe was decorated for his actions. He returned to the RAF only to be shot down and captured by the Germans. But he never forgot the Dales or his friends and built this memorial on Buckton Pike.
I feel very sad indeed. All memories come back to me, not only to my crew who died on this very spot, but to another 300 airmen who are buried in Newark, where is my crew as well.
Well, thank you, Richard. You know, here is this man. I mean, he is a hero.
That's right, and the story is folklore. Lots of people hear about the story before they even get up to the top of the pike.
And I've got Joe's heroics on my mind as I begin my ascent of Buckton Pike. It might not be the biggest hill in the Dales, but it's not far off. And at just over 700 metres high, it's a fair old climb.
Hills and mountains come in all shapes and sizes, and I think I've seen them all. But this one definitely falls into the long, hard slog category, and I've got a long way left to go.
You have to engage low gear to do the final section of Buckton Pike. But when you get to the top, the views are worth all the effort. On a clear day, there's a great Dales panorama, with Yorkshire's famous three peaks standing proudly in the distance. It's a cracking spot, but there's something else that I just have to see.
Thanksgiving to God in memory of 5 Polish airmen who died here in 1942. And it's signed The Survivor. I love it that Richard's dad didn't put his name on there. It seems very humble indeed. But it's also got a sense of pride about it. After all, he is the man who survived. Seems like a very fitting tribute to those 5 men, and of course to one remarkable man who made it through against almost impossible odds.
This memorial marks the end of my Wharfedale journey. The Yorkshire Dales have a special place in many people's hearts. And with more than 1,000 miles of footpaths to explore, there's enough spots in God's own country for us all to enjoy.